Welcome back. Today, we embark on a journey through one of humanity's most remarkable creations, language. This is part of our 3-hour exploration into the evolution of human language, designed not just to inform, but also to relax you as you drift off to sleep. So find a comfortable position, breathe deeply, and let's begin. What is language? At its core, language is the foundation of human communication, a system of symbols, sounds, and gestures that allows us to share thoughts, emotions, ideas, and experiences with others. It's what sets us apart from every other species on this planet. But before we dive deeper, let's take a moment to appreciate the simplicity and complexity of this incredible tool. Think about it. Every word you hear, every sentence you read, began as an idea, a spark in someone's mind. That spark was then translated into sound or symbols, passed from person to person, generation to generation, until it became something universal, something alive. And yet, despite its universality, no two languages are exactly alike. Each carries within it the culture, history, and worldview of the people who speak it. To understand language, we must first break it down into its basic components. There are 3 key elements: phonetics, which deals with the physical production and perception of speech sounds; syntax, which governs the structure and order of words; and semantics, which explores meaning. Together, these elements form the backbone of any language, whether spoken, written, or signed. But language isn't just about grammar rules or vocabulary lists. It's dynamic. It evolves over time, shaped by the needs and creativity of its speakers. Words fall out of use, new ones emerge, and meanings shift. For example, did you know that the word nice once meant foolish or silly? Over centuries, its definition transformed entirely, a testament to the fluidity of language. And here lies the beauty of language. It's both personal and collective. On one hand, it's intimate. We use it to express love, joy, sorrow, and hope. On the other, it's communal, binding us together as societies, cultures, and civilizations. Without language, much of what makes us human would be lost. As we continue exploring the origins and intricacies of language, remember that there's no need to hold on to every detail. Let the rhythm of the narration guide you. If your eyelids grow heavy, if your thoughts start to wander, that's perfectly okay. This is your space to rest, reflect, and dream. In the next segment, we'll delve into the fascinating differences between animal communication and human language. What makes our ability to communicate so unique? Stay with me or drift away as we uncover the answers together. Now that we've explored the basics of language, its structure, its beauty, and its complexity, it's time to ask an intriguing question. What sets human language apart from the ways animals communicate? To answer this, let's take a closer look at both systems of communication and uncover the subtle yet profound differences between them. Animals are remarkable communicators. From the songs of whales echoing across oceans to the intricate dances of honeybees signaling food sources, animal communication is as diverse as it is fascinating. Yet, despite these incredible abilities, there remains a vast gulf between how animals express themselves and the depth of human language. One key difference lies in flexibility. Animal communication tends to be highly specific, often tied to immediate needs, warning of danger, attracting mates, or coordinating group activities. For instance, vervet monkeys have distinct calls for different predators, such as eagles, leopards, and snakes. These signals are effective but limited. They don't allow for abstract thinking or storytelling. In contrast, human language is infinitely flexible. We can talk about things far removed from our present moment, the past, the future, imaginary worlds, or even concepts like justice, love, and curiosity. Our words aren't bound by context. They transcend it. This ability to discuss ideas beyond the here and now is called displacement, and it's one of the hallmarks of human language. Another defining feature of human language is recursion. This is the ability to embed ideas within other ideas, creating complex sentences. Think about how you might say something like, "I think that she believes he knows where the treasure is hidden." Layers upon layers of meaning. This kind of nesting is virtually non-existent in animal communication. There's also the matter of creativity. Humans constantly invent new words, phrases, and expressions. Consider slang terms like ghosting or vibe check. These didn't exist a few decades ago, yet they're now part of our shared lexicon. Animals, on the other hand, rely on innate or learned patterns of communication that rarely change over generations. Their systems are more rigid, less adaptable. But perhaps the most striking difference is symbolic representation. Human language uses arbitrary symbols, sounds, or letters that stand for objects, actions, or ideas. There's no inherent connection between the word tree and the actual object it represents. It's a purely symbolic association agreed upon by society. In contrast, many forms of animal communication are directly tied to stimuli. A bee's waggle dance, for example, conveys precise information about direction and distance, but it doesn't involve symbols detached from their meaning. Of course, some animals exhibit behaviors that blur these distinctions. Dolphins, for instance, use unique whistles to identify one another, almost like names. Parrots like Alex the African Gray demonstrated an impressive ability to understand and use human-like language. Chimpanzees and gorillas, trained in sign language, have shown glimpses of syntax and creativity. But even these extraordinary cases fall short of the full richness of human communication. So, what does all this tell us? That human language isn't just a tool for survival. It's a vehicle for connection, imagination, and innovation. While animals communicate to meet practical needs, humans use language to build bridges across cultures, explore emotions, and dream up possibilities. And yet, understanding these differences reminds us of something deeper: the wonder of being alive, capable of sharing our inner worlds through the power of words. As we continue our journey through the evolution of human language, let's turn our attention to one of the most intriguing theories about how it all began: the gesture theory. Could it be that the roots of language lie not in spoken words, but in something far more primal, our hands? Let's explore this idea together. To understand the gesture theory, imagine early humans trying to communicate before the advent of complex speech. Words as we know them today didn't exist yet, but communication was still essential for hunting, sharing food, warning others of danger, or expressing emotions. So, what did they use instead? Their bodies, specifically their hands. Hand gestures are intuitive. Think about how you might point to indicate direction, wave to greet someone, or raise your palms to signal peace. These actions don't require words. They transcend language barriers and convey meaning directly. For early humans, gestures may have been the first step toward developing a shared system of communication. One argument supporting the gesture theory is rooted in anatomy. Early human vocal tracts weren't well suited for producing the wide range of sounds necessary for spoken language. The larynx, the part of the throat responsible for sound production, was positioned higher, limiting the variety of noises early humans could make. In contrast, their arms and hands were free to move, making gestures a natural choice for conveying information. But there's more to it than just physical capability. Gestures also align closely with thought processes. Have you ever noticed how you naturally gesture when explaining something, even if no one is watching? Moving your hand seems to help clarify ideas in your mind. It's possible that early humans used gestures not only to communicate externally, but also to organize their own thoughts, a precursor to structured language. The transition from gesturing to speaking likely wasn't abrupt. Instead, it probably happened gradually over thousands of years. Some researchers suggest that early humans combined gestures with simple vocalizations, eventually leading to a hybrid form of communication. Picture a hunter miming throwing a spear while uttering a guttural sound to emphasize urgency. Over time, these paired actions evolved into increasingly sophisticated forms of expression until spoken language took center stage. There's evidence to support this theory beyond speculation. Modern sign languages, such as American Sign Language, ASL, or British Sign Language, BSL, demonstrate the complexity and richness of nonverbal communication. These systems aren't merely collections of gestures. They possess grammar, syntax, and nuance akin to spoken languages. They show us that fully developed linguistic systems can indeed arise from manual expressions. Even today, traces of the gesture theory linger in our daily lives. Babies often begin communicating with gestures long before they speak their first words. Pointing at objects, waving goodbye, or clapping to express excitement, these behaviors suggest that gesturing remains deeply ingrained in our communicative instincts. And adults aren't immune either. Studies show that people who speak different languages can often understand each other better through gestures than through words alone. While the gesture theory doesn't claim to explain every aspect of language evolution, it offers a compelling perspective on where it might have started. Perhaps our ancestors' earliest conversations weren't heard but seen. a silent dialogue played out in the air between fingertips and eyes. As we continue our exploration of how human language might have evolved, let's turn our attention to one of the earliest and most intuitive theories, the Bow Wow Theory. Could it be that the first words spoken by humans were inspired by the world around them, the sounds of animals, rivers, storms, and other elements of nature? Let's delve into this idea together. The Bow Wow Theory suggests that early human language began with imitation. Just as a child might mimic the bark of a dog or the call of a bird, our ancestors may have started using these imitations as a way to communicate. For example, hearing a wolf howl in the distance could have led someone to imitate that sound, not just to mimic it, but to warn others of danger nearby. This connection between sound and meaning is what linguists call an onomatopoeia. We see traces of this today in words like buzz, splash, or roar. These words aren't arbitrary. They're shaped by the sounds they represent. But imagine if entire languages had grown from such roots. The word for bird might have started as an imitation of its chirp, or the word out for river could have mimicked the gurgling flow of water over stones. While this theory feels instinctive, after all, children naturally enjoy making animal noises, it raises interesting questions about the limits of imitation. Not every object or concept makes a sound. How would ancient humans have named something silent, like the moon or love? Would they have relied on metaphor, linking those ideas to things that do make noise, or would they have expanded their vocabulary beyond simple imitations? Another consideration is the diversity of languages. If the Bow Wow theory were entirely true, we might expect similar sounding words across different cultures for shared experiences. Yet, the word for dog varies widely, from chien in French to perro in Spanish to mbio in Swahili. While some languages retain echoes of natural sounds, many others have drifted far from their potential origins. Still, there's evidence that supports the role of imitation in early communication. Many indigenous cultures use sound symbolism, a practice where certain sounds carry inherent meanings. For instance, sharp staccato sounds often convey smallness or quickness, while deep, drawn-out tones suggest largeness or slowness. Even modern languages sometimes preserve remnants of this ancient connection between sound and sense. The beauty of the Bow Wow theory lies not necessarily in its completeness, but in its simplicity. It reminds us that language is deeply tied to the environment we inhabit, whether it's the rustle of leaves, the rumble of thunder, or the cry of an owl. The natural world provided a symphony of inspiration for our ancestors, a symphony that may have sparked the first attempts at speech. Of course, the Bow Wow theory isn't without its critics. Some argue that imitation alone couldn't account for the complexity of human language. Others point to alternative theories, like the gesture theory we discussed earlier, which emphasizes hand signals over vocalizations. But perhaps the truth isn't either or, it's both. Language likely evolved through a combination of methods, with imitation playing a key part alongside gestures, creativity, and social interaction. For now, though, let's sit with the possibility that our words began as echoes of the earth itself. As you listen to the sounds of nature around you, the hum of insects, the whisper of the breeze, imagine how those noises might have shaped the first conversations among humanity. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that the story of language connects us to the rhythms of the world we share. As we continue our exploration of how human language evolved, let's turn our attention to another intriguing theory, the Pooh-Pooh Theory. According to this idea, some of humanity's earliest forms of speech may have originated not from deliberate communication, but from spontaneous emotional expressions, those instinctive sounds we make when surprised, frightened, delighted, or in pain. Let's take a moment to consider how these raw, unfiltered reactions might have laid the groundwork for the rich tapestry of language we use today. Think about it. When something startles you, a loud noise perhaps, you might gasp or shout without thinking. If you stub your toe, you might let out an involuntary ouch. Or if you see something adorable, like a puppy wagging its tail, you might coo with delight. These aren't carefully chosen words. They're automatic responses to what's happening around us. And yet, they carry meaning. They convey emotion, urgency, even intent. The Pooh-Pooh Theory suggests that early humans used similar exclamations as the foundation for their first attempts at communication. A sudden cry of fear could warn others of danger. A joyful laugh might signal safety or celebration. Over time, these instinctive sounds could have been refined and repurposed, eventually forming the basis of more structured language. One key aspect of this theory is that these sounds are universal. Across cultures and languages, people express basic emotions in remarkably similar ways. Laughter, screams, sighs. We all recognize them, regardless of where we come from. This universality hints at something primal, something deeply rooted in our shared humanity. It's possible that these natural vocalizations were the seeds from which language grew. Consider laughter, for example. Laughter is inherently social. It connects us, breaking down barriers and signaling trust. Early humans likely used laughter or something akin to it as a way to bond, to share joy, or to diffuse tension. Similarly, cries of alarm would have served a practical purpose, alerting others to threats before they became life-threatening. These simple, emotionally charged sounds could have been the first steps toward more complex forms of expression. But here's the fascinating part. These emotional reactions didn't just shape individual words, they influenced the rhythm, tone, and melody of language itself. Think about how much of communication happens beyond the literal meaning of words. The rise and fall of your voice, the emphasis on certain syllables, the pauses between phrases, all of these elements add layers of meaning to what you say. They make language dynamic, expressive, and uniquely human. It's worth noting that the Pooh-Pooh Theory doesn't claim to explain everything about language evolution. Some scholars argue that emotional exclamations alone couldn't account for the complexity of grammar, syntax, or abstract thought. Others point to complementary theories like the Bow Wow theory, which focuses on imitating natural sounds, or the gesture theory, which highlights hand signals. But perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between, a blend of instinctive reactions, imitation, and innovation working together over millennia. Even today, traces of the Pooh-Pooh Theory linger in our daily lives. We still rely on emotional expressions to communicate quickly and effectively. A sharp intake of breath can signal surprise. A groan conveys frustration. A heartfelt awe expresses empathy or affection. These tones bypass the need for words, cutting straight to the core of human connection. So, as you reflect on this theory, imagine those first moments when our ancestors began transforming instinct into language. Picture them laughing together around a fire, shouting warnings to one another in the face of danger, or softly cooing to soothe a child. These small, seemingly insignificant sounds may have been the sparks that ignited the flame of human communication. If this idea resonates with you, or if it simply helps lull you into relaxation, let yourself drift now. Rest easy, knowing that every word you speak carries within it echoes of those ancient primal expressions. Language isn't just a tool, it's a living testament to the power of emotion and connection. As we journey deeper into the origins of human language, let's now explore a theory that suggests our ancestors may have connected sounds directly to the objects and phenomena they encountered in their environment. This is known as the ding-dong theory. According to this idea, early humans didn't just imitate natural sounds, they intuitively linked certain tones, rhythms, or pitches to specific things around them. Let's delve into how these associations might have shaped the beginnings of speech. The ding-dong theory posits that there's an inherent harmony between the world and the way we describe it, that everything in nature has its own resonance, so to speak. Imagine standing near a flowing river. The sound of water cascading over rocks might evoke a sense of fluidity, rhythm, or even life itself. Early humans could have associated such qualities with words or sounds that mirrored those characteristics. Perhaps the word for river carried a flowing melodic quality, mimicking the motion of water. This concept goes beyond simple imitation, as seen in the Bow Wow theory. Instead, it implies a deeper, almost mystical connection between sound and meaning. For example, sharp, staccato sounds might naturally feel suited to describing something small, quick, or abrupt, like a bird darting through the air. In contrast, low resonant tones might evoke images of large, slow-moving objects, a mountain perhaps, or the rumble of distant thunder. While modern languages may not always reflect this intrinsic link between sound and object, traces of it remain. Linguists refer to this phenomenon as sound symbolism. The idea that certain sounds carry implicit meanings across cultures. Consider words like glitter, glimmer, or gleam. Notice how the repeated giel sound seems to shimmer or sparkle, evoking brightness and light. Similarly, words like boom, thud, or crash tend to be heavy and forceful, mirroring the impact they represent. Some researchers believe that sound symbolism played a crucial role in the development of early vocabulary. By associating particular sounds with specific objects, actions, or concepts, our ancestors could create a rudimentary system of communication that others could understand. Over time, these connections would have become more abstract, evolving into the complex web of meaning we call language today. Interestingly, evidence of sound symbolism can still be found in many languages. For instance, in Japanese, the word kirakura describes something sparkling or glittering, with its light, repetitive syllables perfectly capturing the essence of shimmering light. Similarly, English speakers often use reduplicated phrases like tick-tock for clocks or zigzag for jagged lines, reinforcing the intuitive link between sound and image. But the ding-dong theory isn't without its challenges. Critics argue that the relationship between sound and meaning is largely arbitrary, that there's no universal reason why dog should sound one way in English and entirely different in another language. Yet, proponents of the theory point to cross-cultural patterns in sound symbolism, suggesting that some connections are too consistent to dismiss as coincidence. One way to think about the ding-dong theory is as a bridge between instinct and creativity. While early humans may have started with innate associations between sound and object, they eventually expanded upon these foundations, experimenting with new combinations and meanings. Language, in this view, becomes both a reflection of the natural world and a testament to humanity's ability to innovate and adapt. So, as you listen to the sounds around you, the rustle of leaves, the patter of raindrops, the hum of distant traffic, imagine how those noises might have inspired the first attempts at naming the world. Each sound carries within it the potential for meaning, waiting to be discovered and shared. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy knowing that every word you hear carries echoes of this ancient resonance. In the rhythm of language, we find not only utility, but also beauty, a reminder that the act of speaking connects us not only to each other, but to the world itself. As we continue our exploration of how human language evolved, let's turn our attention to a theory that highlights the power of community and cooperation. The yo-he-ho theory. According to this idea, some of humanity's earliest forms of speech may have emerged not from solitary moments, but from the shared efforts of working together, lifting heavy objects, pulling ropes, or rowing boats. Let's take a moment to imagine how these collective actions might have sparked the beginnings of spoken language. Picture a group of early humans working together to move a massive boulder. To coordinate their movements, they would need to synchronize their actions, lifting, pushing, or pulling at the same time. A simple chant like yo-he-ho could serve as both a signal and a motivator, helping them stay in rhythm and work more efficiently. These vocalizations weren't just practical tools, they were the seeds of communication. The yo-he-ho theory suggests that such rhythmic vocalizations played a crucial role in the development of language. The repetitive, predictable patterns of chants or calls made it easier for individuals to understand and respond to one another. Over time, these basic rhythms could have expanded into more complex forms of expression, eventually giving rise to words, phrases, and sentences. This theory underscores the importance of collaboration in human evolution. Early humans relied on teamwork to survive, to hunt large animals, build shelters, or navigate challenging terrains. Language, in this view, wasn't just a means of individual expression. It was a tool for strengthening bonds within groups. By chanting together, singing together, or even grunting in unison, people reinforced their sense of unity and purpose. There's still something profound about the connection between rhythm and language. Even today, we see echoes of this relationship in activities like singing hymns in church, cheering at sporting events, or clapping along to music at a concert. These shared experiences tap into the same ancient instinct to come together, to harmonize, to feel part of something greater than ourselves. Consider the physical act of speaking itself. When you talk, your voice naturally rises and falls in patterns that resemble music. Linguists call this prosody, the melody of speech. It includes the pitch, stress, and timing of words, all of which contribute to meaning. Could it be that these melodic qualities originated from the rhythmic chants of our ancestors as they labored side by side? If so, every conversation we have today carries a trace of those communal efforts. One fascinating aspect of the Yo-He-Ho theory is its emphasis on the social function of language. While other theories focus on imitation, gestures, or emotional reactions, this one reminds us that language is fundamentally tied to human interaction. It's about connecting not just with the world around us, but with each other. Through coordinated effort, early humans didn't just accomplish tasks, they built relationships, shared knowledge, and created culture. Of course, the Yo-He-Ho theory doesn't claim to explain everything about language evolution. Like the other theories we've discussed, the Bow-Wow theory, the Pooh-Pooh theory, and the Ding-Dong theory, it offers only a piece of the puzzle, but perhaps that's the beauty of it. Language didn't arise from a single source. It grew out of countless interactions, adaptations, and innovations over thousands of years. So, as you reflect on this idea, imagine those first moments when our ancestors began transforming work into rhythm, rhythm into sound, and sound into meaning. Picture them chanting together under the sun, their voices blending into a chorus of effort and connection. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that every word you speak carries within it the legacy of those ancient collective endeavors. In the cadence of language, we find not only utility but also harmony. A reminder that the act of speaking connects us not only to each other, but to the shared history of humanity. As we continue our journey into the origins of human language, let's pause for a moment to consider an intriguing question. Could Neanderthals, the ancient relatives who shared our world tens of thousands of years ago, speak? Did they possess the ability to communicate with words as we do today? Or were their forms of expression limited to gestures and sounds more basic than speech? Neanderthals have long been misunderstood. Once depicted as brutish, primitive creatures, modern research has revealed them to be remarkably sophisticated. They crafted tools, buried their dead with care, and even created art. But what about language? To answer this, we must look at both the physical evidence and the cognitive abilities of these ancient humans. One key piece of evidence lies in their anatomy. The vocal tract, the structure responsible for producing speech, is shaped differently in modern humans compared to other primates. For speech to occur, certain conditions must be met: a lowered larynx, a flexible tongue, and precise control over airflow. Recent studies suggest that Neanderthals may have had a vocal apparatus similar enough to ours to produce a range of sounds, though perhaps not as varied or nuanced. But anatomy alone doesn't tell the whole story. Language isn't just about making sounds, it's about understanding and using those sounds meaningfully. This requires advanced cognition, including the ability to process complex grammar, syntax, and abstract concepts. Here, too, Neanderthals show signs of sophistication. Their brains were roughly the same size as ours, and they likely possessed regions associated with language processing, such as Broca's area and Wernicke's area. Genetic evidence adds another layer to the puzzle. A gene called FOXP2 plays a crucial role in speech and language development. Mutations in this gene can lead to difficulties in articulation and comprehension. Remarkably, Neanderthals share the same version of FOXP2 as modern humans, a strong indication that they might have had the genetic foundation necessary for spoken language. Still, the picture isn't entirely clear. While Neanderthals may have been capable of some form of speech, it's unlikely to have been identical to ours. Their vocabulary and sentence structures might have been simpler, adapted to their specific needs and environment. Perhaps their communication blended vocalizations with gestures, much like the early stages of human language evolution we discussed earlier. The debate continues among scientists, fueled by new discoveries each year. Some argue that Neanderthals communicated primarily through nonverbal means, relying on facial expressions, body movements, and contextual cues. Others believe they engaged in full-fledged conversations, complete with stories, songs, and shared knowledge passed down through generations. One thing is certain: Neanderthals were far from silent. Whether through words, grunts, or rhythmic chants, they found ways to connect with one another, to cooperate during hunts, to teach their young, and to mourn their dead. These acts of communication, however rudimentary or refined, remind us of something profound. The desire to share experiences and build communities is deeply rooted in our evolutionary history. So, as you reflect on the possibility of Neanderthal speech, imagine what it might have sounded like. Picture a group gathered around a fire, exchanging sounds and gestures that carried meaning beyond their immediate surroundings. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that the echoes of their voices, whether literal or symbolic, still resonate within us today. In the end, the question of whether Neanderthals could talk isn't just about them, it's about us. It challenges us to think about what makes us human, how we define language, and how deeply connected we are to those who came before us. As we delve deeper into the origins of human language, let's turn our attention to one of the most intriguing discoveries in the field of genetics, the FOXP2 gene, often referred to as the language gene. This tiny piece of our DNA plays a crucial role in our ability to speak and understand language. But what makes it so special? And could it be the key to understanding what truly separates us from animals? To begin, let's clarify something important. The FOXP2 gene isn't exclusive to humans. It exists in many species, from mice to chimpanzees. However, there's one critical difference. Humans have a unique variation of this gene. This small genetic tweak is believed to have emerged hundreds of thousands of years ago, coinciding with the development of complex speech and communication. So, what does the FOXP2 gene actually do? At its core, it's involved in the development of neural pathways in the brain, particularly those responsible for controlling the muscles used in speech. Think about the intricate coordination required to form words. Your tongue, lips, vocal cords, and diaphragm all working together seamlessly. The FOXP2 gene helps ensure these systems function properly, enabling us to articulate thoughts with precision. But here's where things get even more fascinating. The FOXP2 gene doesn't just influence physical abilities, it also affects cognitive processes tied to language. Studies suggest that this gene plays a role in grammar, syntax, and the ability to learn new words, skills that are uniquely advanced in humans compared to other animals. Consider the case of a British family known as the KE family, who were studied extensively in the 1990s. Many members of this family had difficulty speaking and understanding language due to a mutation in their FOXP2 gene. Their struggles weren't limited to pronunciation. They also faced challenges with grammar and sentence structure. This groundbreaking research highlighted how vital this gene is to our linguistic capabilities. Animals, too, rely on the FOXP2 gene for communication, but their version lacks the refinements found in humans. For example, songbirds use their FOXP2 gene to learn and produce songs, a form of vocal learning not unlike how humans acquire language. Yet, while birdsong is impressive, it pales in comparison to the complexity of human speech. Our version of the gene allows us to create infinite combinations of sounds, meanings, and ideas, a hallmark of true language. The discovery of the FOXP2 gene raises profound questions about evolution and what it means to be human. Did this genetic mutation occur by chance, giving our ancestors a survival advantage? Or was it part of a broader shift toward greater social cooperation and cultural exchange? While we may never know for sure, the evidence points to the FOXP2 gene as a pivotal moment in our evolutionary journey. It's worth noting that the FOXP2 gene isn't the sole factor behind language. Language is an incredibly complex phenomenon shaped by biology, culture, environment, and countless other variables. However, the FOXP2 gene serves as a reminder of how deeply rooted our capacity for communication is in our genetic makeup. It's a bridge between the ancient instincts of our ancestors and the sophisticated conversations we have today. So, as you reflect on the role of the FOXP2 gene, imagine the first moments when early humans began using this newfound ability to share stories, pass down knowledge, and connect with one another. Each word they spoke carried within it the potential to transform relationships, communities, and ultimately the world. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that the gift of language is written into your very DNA. In every syllable, every sentence, and every song, we carry echoes of this ancient legacy, a reminder that the power to communicate is one of humanity's greatest treasures. As we continue our exploration of human language evolution, let's turn our attention inward to the very structure of our bodies. Specifically, the vocal tract, the intricate system of muscles, bones, and airways that allows us to produce the rich tapestry of sounds we call speech. How did this remarkable anatomical feature evolve, and what role did it play in shaping the way we communicate? To understand the evolution of the vocal tract, we must first recognize how unique it is. Unlike most other mammals, humans have a descended larynx, a voice box positioned lower in the throat. This anatomical shift creates a longer resonating chamber, giving us the ability to produce a wide range of vowel sounds and complex consonants. It's one of the key features that sets us apart from other species. But why would such a change occur? The answer lies at the intersection of biology and behavior. Early humans likely faced increasing demands for communication as their social structures grew more complex. To convey nuanced ideas, whether warning of danger, coordinating group efforts, or sharing stories, they needed a more versatile system of expression. Over time, natural selection favored individuals whose vocal tracts allowed them to produce a greater variety of sounds. The descended larynx didn't appear overnight. It evolved gradually over hundreds of thousands of years. Fossil evidence suggests that our early ancestors, such as Homo erectus, had vocal tracts more similar to those of modern apes, with a higher positioned larynxes. These limitations restricted the range of sounds they could make, likely resulting in simpler forms of vocalization. Interestingly, the descent of the larynx came with trade-offs. While it enhanced our ability to speak, it also made us more vulnerable to choking. Because the pathway for air and food overlaps in the throat, there's a greater risk of obstruction when swallowing. Despite this drawback, the benefits of advanced communication outweighed the risks, ensuring that the trait persisted through generations. Another critical factor in the evolution of the vocal tract was the development of fine motor control. Speech isn't just about having the right anatomy, it's about precision. The tongue, lips, and jaw must work together in perfect harmony to shape each sound. This level of coordination required significant advancements in brain function, particularly in areas associated with motor skills and language processing. The changes in our vocal tract weren't isolated events. They were part of a broader suite of adaptations that supported human communication. For example, the shape of our skulls evolved to accommodate larger brains, which in turn facilitated abstract thinking and problem solving. Similarly, the flexibility of our facial muscles allowed for subtle expressions that complemented spoken language, adding layers of meaning to our interactions. It's important to note that these anatomical shifts didn't happen in isolation. They were influenced by, and in turn influenced, our cultural and social environments. As early humans began living in larger groups, the need for clear, efficient communication became paramount. Language, in all its complexity, emerged as a response to these pressures, shaping not only how we interacted, but also how we thought. So as you reflect on the evolution of the vocal tract, imagine the countless generations of ancestors whose small, incremental changes paved the way for the gift of speech. Their bodies adapted, their minds expanded, and their voices carried the seeds of connection, creativity, and culture. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy knowing that every word you utter carries within it the legacy of this extraordinary journey. In the rhythm of your breath, the vibration of your vocal cords, and the resonance of your voice, you embody millions of years of evolution, a testament to humanity's enduring quest to connect and be understood. As we delve deeper into the origins of human language, let us now turn our focus inward, not just to the anatomy of the vocal tract, but to the very heart of communication, the brain. Within its intricate folds lie two regions crucial to language, Broca's area and Wernicke's area. These specialized zones are responsible for producing speech and understanding meaning, respectively. But how did they evolve, and what role have they played in shaping our ability to communicate? To begin, let's consider Broca's area, a region located in the frontal lobe of the brain, named after the French physician Paul Broca, who first identified its importance in the 19th century. This area is primarily involved in speech production. It allows us to form coherent sentences, articulate words, and express thoughts fluently. When Broca's area is damaged, individuals often struggle to speak, though their comprehension remains largely intact, a condition known as Broca's aphasia. Wernicke's area, on the other hand, resides in the temporal lobe and plays a vital role in language comprehension. Discovered by Carl Wernicke, this region helps us understand spoken and written words, interpret meaning, and process complex grammatical structures. Damage to Wernicke's area can result in fluent but nonsensical speech, where individuals string together words without conveying logical ideas, a condition called Wernicke's aphasia. But how did these critical regions evolve? To answer that, we must look at the broader evolution of the human brain. Over millions of years, our ancestors' brains grew larger and more complex, particularly in areas associated with higher-order thinking, problem-solving, and social interaction. As early humans began living in increasingly cooperative groups, the need for sophisticated communication became paramount, and so too did the development of neural networks dedicated to language. Broca's and Wernicke's areas likely emerged as part of this evolutionary shift. While non-human primates possess analogous brain regions involved in basic vocalizations and gestures, these areas are far less developed than in humans. In our species, they expanded and became highly specialized, enabling not only the physical act of speaking, but also the abstract processes required for grammar, syntax, and semantics. One fascinating aspect of their evolution is the interplay between biology and culture. Language isn't solely a product of genetics. It's also shaped by the environments in which we live and the societies we build. As early humans engaged in storytelling, teaching, and collaborative tasks, their brains adapted to meet these demands. The repeated use of language strengthened neural connections in Broca's and Wernicke's areas, reinforcing their roles in communication. Modern imaging technologies such as fMRI and PET scans have allowed scientists to study these brain regions in unprecedented detail. What they've discovered is remarkable. When we speak or listen, Broca's and Wernicke's areas light up with activity, working in tandem to create and decipher language. Even more intriguingly, these regions are connected by a bundle of nerve fibers called the arcuate fasciculus, which acts as a highway for information exchange between them. Yet, it's worth noting that language isn't confined to just these two areas. Research has shown that many parts of the brain contribute to linguistic processing, from memory centers that store vocabulary to emotional circuits that infuse words with feeling. Language is a whole brain phenomenon, deeply intertwined with cognition, emotion, and even creativity. So, as you reflect on the evolution of Broca's and Wernicke's areas, imagine the countless generations whose growing need to connect gave rise to these extraordinary neural pathways. Their thoughts sparked conversations, their stories forged bonds, and their words laid the foundation for everything we know today. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy knowing that every sentence you form carries within it the legacy of this incredible journey. In the quiet hum of your mind, the whispers of neurons firing, and the flow of ideas taking shape, you honor the ancient gift of language, a testament to humanity's endless capacity to share, learn, and grow. As we continue our exploration of human language evolution, let's now turn our attention to one of the most remarkable transitions in communication: the journey from simple grunts and gestures to the intricate systems of grammar that shape modern language. How did early humans move beyond isolated words and sounds to construct complex sentences? And what does this evolution tell us about the power of language to convey meaning? To understand this transformation, imagine the earliest forms of human communication, basic vocalizations and gestures used to express immediate needs. A grunt might signal hunger, a gesture could point to danger, or a cry might warn of an approaching predator. These primitive forms of expression were functional but limited, unable to capture abstract ideas, relationships, or sequences of events. But over time, something extraordinary happened. Humans began combining these simple units of communication into larger, more meaningful structures. Instead of just pointing to a tree, they might say or gesture that there was fruit on the tree, or that someone had climbed up it. These combinations allowed them to describe not just objects, but actions, locations, and even intentions. Language was no longer just about naming things, it became about telling stories. This shift marked the birth of syntax, the rules and patterns that govern how words are arranged into sentences. Syntax is what allows us to take the same set of words and create entirely different meanings depending on their order. For example, the dog chased the cat tells a very different story from the cat chased the dog. Such flexibility gave early humans the ability to share increasingly detailed and nuanced information with one another. The development of grammar wasn't an overnight process. It unfolded gradually over tens of thousands of years. Early sentence structures were likely rudimentary, relying on simple subject-verb-object patterns. Over generations, as social interactions grew more complex, so too did the way people organized their thoughts. Questions emerged, enabling curiosity and inquiry. Negation allowed speakers to deny or clarify statements. Tense markers helped situate events in the past, present, or future. With each innovation, language became a more powerful tool for connection and understanding. One key factor driving this evolution was the human brain's capacity for abstraction. As cognitive abilities expanded, so did the need to express ideas beyond the immediate environment. People began discussing things they couldn't see or touch, concepts like hope, fear, love, or justice. To do this, they needed more sophisticated grammatical frameworks. They needed ways to link cause and effect, compare alternatives, and speculate about possibilities. Language became a bridge between the tangible world and the realm of imagination. Another driving force was collaboration. Language evolved in communities, shaped by the collective needs of groups working together. Clearer communication meant better coordination during hunts, more effective teaching of skills, and stronger bonds within families and tribes. Grammatical structures helped organize shared knowledge, ensuring that important lessons, how to build shelters, which plants were safe to eat, or where to find water, could be passed down through generations. Interestingly, the evolution of sentence structures also reflects cultural values and priorities. In some languages, verbs come first, emphasizing action. In others, nouns take precedence, highlighting the importance of people, places, or things. Even today, linguistic diversity reveals how different societies have adapted language to suit their unique ways of life. Yet, beneath these variations lies a universal truth. Grammar is the scaffolding that holds language together, giving it structure and depth. So, as you reflect on this incredible journey from grunts to grammar, imagine the countless moments when early humans first began piecing together fragments of thought into coherent sentences. Each word they linked, each rule they followed, brought them closer to the rich tapestry of communication we enjoy today. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that every sentence you form carries within it the legacy of this extraordinary evolution. In the rhythm of your speech, the flow of your thoughts, and the connections you forge with others, you embody millions of years of progress, a testament to humanity's enduring quest to share, learn, and grow. As we journey through the origins of human language, let's pause to reflect on a pivotal moment in our history, the act of naming. When did humans first begin labeling the world around them? What were the first objects to be given names, and why? To answer these questions, we must imagine ourselves in the footsteps of our ancestors, those early humans who looked at their surroundings and decided to assign meaning to what they saw. The act of naming is profound. It transforms something abstract, a tree, a river, an animal, into something concrete, something that can be shared, discussed, and remembered. But where did it all begin? Anthropologists believe that the first named objects were likely tied to survival. Early humans would have prioritized words for things essential to their daily lives: food, water, fire, tools, predators, and companions. Imagine a group of hunters tracking a herd of deer without a word to describe the animal. Communicating its location or movements would have been nearly impossible. A simple label, perhaps a sound mimicking the animal's call, or a gesture representing its shape, would have made coordination easier. Over time, these labels became standardized within groups, forming the foundation of vocabulary. But naming wasn't just practical, it was also symbolic. As humans developed greater cognitive abilities, they began to see patterns and connections in the world. They noticed recurring shapes, colors, and behaviors, and they sought ways to categorize and understand them. Naming gave them power over their environment. By calling something into existence with a word, they claimed ownership of it, however intangible that ownership might be. One theory suggests that the earliest named objects weren't physical entities, but rather concepts. Things like danger, safety, or home. These ideas would have been critical for social cohesion, helping individuals navigate relationships and emotions within their communities. From there, the practice of naming expanded outward, encompassing everything from natural phenomena like storms and stars to man-made creations like spears and shelters. The process of naming is deeply intertwined with culture. Different societies emphasized different aspects of their environments based on their needs and values. For example, indigenous cultures living near rivers often have rich vocabularies describing water currents, fish species, and seasonal changes. In contrast, desert-dwelling peoples might focus on variations in sand, wind, and heat. Each language reflects a unique way of interacting with the world, shaped by geography, climate, and tradition. Fascinatingly, the act of naming continues to evolve today. New technologies, scientific discoveries, and cultural shifts constantly introduce new terms into our lexicon. Words like smartphone, Wi-Fi, and even emoji didn't exist a century ago, yet they follow the same principle as those first named objects, giving form and meaning to the unknown. Naming also carries emotional weight. Think about how personal names connect us to identity and belonging. Or consider how place names evoke memories and stories. The power of a name lies not only in its utility, but also in its ability to create bonds, to link individuals to their families, communities, and histories. So as you reflect on the first named objects, imagine the awe and wonder felt by early humans as they pointed to a towering mountain or a rushing stream and said, "This is that." Their words may have been simple, but their implications were vast. Through naming, they began to organize chaos, to make sense of the infinite complexity of the world. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy knowing that every name you use carries within it echoes of this ancient practice, the timeless human desire to know and be known. In every label, every title, and every term, we honor the legacy of those who first dared to give voice to the silent wonders of the universe. As we continue our exploration of human language evolution, let's now turn our attention to one of the most transformative moments in communication: the shift from pictographs, simple drawings that represented objects or ideas, to the complex written words we use today. This transition marks a pivotal step in humanity's journey toward expressing abstract thought and preserving knowledge across generations. To understand this transformation, imagine the earliest forms of written expression. Long before alphabets and grammar, humans communicated through images. Cave paintings, etched into stone thousands of years ago, depicted animals, people, and events. These weren't just art. They were messages, stories frozen in time, meant to convey information about hunts, rituals, or the natural world. But as societies grew more complex, so too did their need for precise communication. Simple drawings evolved into pictographs, symbols that directly represented specific objects or actions. For example, a drawing of the sun might symbolize daylight, warmth, or even time itself. A picture of a foot could mean walking, traveling, or distance. These visual shorthand tools allowed early humans to share ideas quickly and efficiently. However, pictographs had limitations. While they worked well for concrete concepts, things you could see or touch, they struggled to capture abstract ideas like emotions, relationships, or philosophical musings. How do you draw freedom, justice, or hope? To overcome these challenges, humans began developing new methods of representation, moving away from literal images toward symbolic systems. This shift led to the creation of ideographic writing, where symbols came to represent broader ideas rather than specific objects. For instance, instead of drawing a house to mean home, the symbol might come to signify shelter, family, or belonging. Over time, these ideograms became more stylized, shedding their resemblance to the original pictures and taking on lives of their own. One of the most famous examples of this evolution is ancient Sumerian cuneiform. Originally composed of pictographic signs carved into clay tablets, cuneiform gradually transformed into a system of wedge-shaped marks, representing syllables and sounds. Similarly, Egyptian hieroglyphs started as detailed images, but eventually included phonetic elements, allowing scribes to write names, sounds, and abstract concepts. The development of alphabets marked another monumental leap forward. Instead of relying on hundreds or even thousands of symbols, alphabetic systems reduced writing to a manageable set of characters, each corresponding to a sound. This innovation made literacy accessible to more people and laid the foundation for modern languages. Yet, traces of pictographic origins remain. Consider the letter A, which likely began as an image of an ox head with its horns pointing upward. Over millennia, it was simplified and rotated until it became the familiar shape we know today. What's remarkable about this progression is how deeply it reflects human ingenuity. Writing didn't just evolve to record facts, it became a vehicle for creativity, storytelling, and cultural identity. Through writing, we could preserve history, codify laws, compose poetry, and share wisdom across vast distances and lifetimes. So, as you reflect on the journey from pictographs to words, imagine those first moments when early humans realized they could transform images into enduring symbols. Each stroke of their tools carried within it the power to transcend time and space, to speak to future generations long after they were gone. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that every word you read or write carries echoes of this extraordinary evolution. In the quiet lines of text, the curves of letters, and the spaces between words, you honor the legacy of those who first dared to give permanence to thought, a testament to humanity's endless capacity to create, connect, and endure. As we journey deeper into the origins of human language, let us step back tens of thousands of years to a time when words were not yet written, but meaning was still captured in other ways. Long before alphabets and grammar, our ancestors expressed themselves through cave paintings and early symbolic systems. These ancient forms of communication are often considered the precursors to writing, bridging the gap between spoken language and the written word. Imagine standing inside a dimly lit cave, its walls adorned with vivid images of animals, handprints, and abstract shapes. To modernize, these may seem like mere decorations, but to their creators, they were far more maps, stories, rituals, or even spiritual expressions. Cave paintings served as a way to record experiences, share knowledge, and connect with others across totem, a function remarkably similar to what writing does today. These early artworks weren't random scribbles. They carried intention. For instance, depictions of bison, deer, or mammoths might have told tales of successful hunts or warned of nearby predators. Handprints left on cave walls could signify presence, perhaps marking territory, claiming authorship, or simply saying, "I was here." Each mark held significance, transforming raw stone into a canvas of shared understanding. But cave paintings were only part of the story. Over time, humans began experimenting with simpler, more abstract symbols, what scholars now call proto-writing. Unlike detailed illustrations, proto-writing used lines, dots, and geometric patterns to represent ideas, objects, or quantities. Found on clay tokens, bones, and stones, these symbols predated true writing systems, but laid the groundwork for them. One remarkable example comes from the ancient Near East, where small clay tokens were used to track goods like grain, livestock, or textiles. A sphere might represent a sheep, while a ma'apul stood for a unit of barley. At first, these tokens were standalone tools, but eventually, people began pressing their shapes onto clay tablets, creating impressions that mirrored the original objects. This innovation marked a crucial step toward abstraction, the essence of all written languages. The transition from pictorial art to proto-writing wasn't just practical, it was profound. It signaled a shift in how humans thought about representation. Instead of relying solely on literal images, they started using symbols that required interpretation. A drawing of a bull might be universally understood, but a wedge-shaped mark denoting bull invited a deeper level of engagement. Meaning became less immediate and more conceptual, a hallmark of complex communication. This evolution didn't happen overnight. Proto-writing systems emerged independently in different parts of the world, each shaped by local needs and cultures. In Mesopotamia, these symbols evolved into cuneiform, one of humanity's earliest known writing systems. In Egypt, hieroglyphs blended pictorial elements with phonetic signs. Meanwhile, in China, oracle bone script hinted at the beginnings of Chinese characters. Despite their differences, all these systems stemmed from the same fundamental impulse to preserve and transmit information beyond the limits of memory and speech. What's truly remarkable is how these early efforts reflect the human desire to leave a trace, to ensure that our lives, thoughts, and achievements endure. Cave paintings and proto-writing remind us that communication isn't just about exchanging information, it's about connection. Whether etched into rock or pressed into clay, these symbols allowed individuals to reach across generations, linking past, present, and future. So, as you reflect on the journey from cave paintings to proto-writing, imagine the hands that first brushed pigment onto stone or carved symbols into clay. Their actions may have been simple, but their implications were vast. Through these marks, they gave form to ideas, preserved memories, and forged pathways to new ways of thinking. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy knowing that every letter, every word, and every sentence carries echoes of this ancient legacy, the timeless human urge to create, communicate, and connect. In the quiet strokes of ink, the curves of carvings, and the shadows of forgotten caves, we honor the pioneers who dared to give permanence to thought, a testament to humanity's enduring quest to know and be known. As we journey deeper into the origins of written language, let us turn our attention to one of humanity's most remarkable achievements, the Sumerian Cuneiform System. Born over 5,000 years ago in ancient Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, cuneiform represents the world's first known writing system. It is a testament to human ingenuity and the enduring desire to preserve knowledge across time. The story of cuneiform begins not with grand poetry or philosophy, but with practicality. The earliest forms of cuneiform were developed by the Sumerians as a way to keep track of goods and transactions. Picture bustling city-states filled with traders exchanging barley, livestock, pottery, and textiles. To manage these exchanges, scribes began recording information on clay tablets using simple pictographs, pictures that represented objects or quantities. At first, these symbols were literal images. A drawing of a sheep might stand for an actual sheep, while a wedge-shaped mark could denote a specific number. But as trade networks expanded, and societies grew more complex, the limitations of pictographs became apparent. How do you represent abstract concepts like debt, ownership, or justice? The answer lay in abstraction, the process of simplifying and stylizing symbols until they no longer resembled their original forms. Over centuries, cuneiform evolved from crude drawings into a sophisticated script composed of wedge-shaped marks made with a reed stylus. These marks gave the system its name. Cuneiform comes from the Latin words cuneus, meaning wedge, and forma, meaning shape. By pressing the stylus into soft clay at various angles, scribes created intricate combinations of wedges and lines that conveyed everything from royal decrees to epic tales. One of the most fascinating aspects of cuneiform is its adaptability. While it started as a tool for accounting, it soon expanded to serve broader purposes. Scribes began documenting laws, religious texts, medical prescriptions, and even literature. One of the greatest treasures of cuneiform is the Epic of Gilgamesh, an ancient Mesopotamian poem that explores themes of friendship, mortality, and the search for meaning. Through cuneiform, the voices of long-dead civilizations speak to us across millennia. Cuneiform wasn't just a writing system, it was a cultural cornerstone. Learning to read and write cuneiform required years of training, often in specialized schools called eduba or tablet houses. Only a select few, known as scribes, mastered this skill, making them indispensable members of society. Their work ensured that records were kept, stories were told, and knowledge was passed down through generations. Yet, the creation of cuneiform also highlights the challenges of early writing systems. For one, it was labor-intensive. Each tablet had to be carefully inscribed, dried, and stored. Mistakes couldn't easily be erased, so errors required starting over with fresh clay. Despite these hurdles, the benefits far outweighed the costs. Writing allowed humans to transcend the limits of memory, enabling them to document vast amounts of information and share it widely. The influence of cuneiform extended far beyond Sumer. As neighboring cultures encountered the Sumerians, they adopted and adapted the system for their own languages. Akkadian, Babylonian, Assyrian, and others all used versions of cuneiform, spreading its reach across the ancient Near East. Eventually, however, simpler writing systems like alphabets replaced cuneiform, marking the end of an era. Yet, its legacy lives on in every written word we use today. So, as you reflect on the invention of cuneiform, imagine those first moments when a Sumerian scribe pressed a stylus into wet clay, transforming fleeting thoughts into enduring symbols. Each mark carried within it the power to bridge time and space, to connect past, present, and future. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that every letter, every word, and every sentence carries echoes of this extraordinary innovation. In the quiet impressions of clay, the sharp edges of wedges, and the silent stories etched into stone, we honor the pioneers who dared to give permanence to thought, a testament to humanity's endless capacity to create, communicate, and endure. As we continue our exploration of human language evolution, let us now turn our attention to one of the most transformative chapters in communication, the evolution of alphabets. This journey, from simple pictographs etched into stone to the elegant phonetic symbols we use today, is a testament to humanity's relentless drive to simplify, adapt, and innovate. To understand this transformation, imagine the earliest forms of written expression, pictographs, those rudimentary drawings that represented objects or ideas. A drawing of a sun might symbolize daylight, warmth, or time itself. A picture of a foot could mean walking, traveling, or distance. These images were practical, but limited in scope, as they struggled to capture abstract concepts like emotions, relationships, or philosophical musings. But as societies grew more complex, so too did their need for precise and efficient communication. Pictographs began to evolve into ideographic systems, where symbols came to represent broader ideas rather than specific objects. For instance, instead of drawing a house to mean home, the symbol might signify shelter, family, or belonging. Over time, these ideograms became more stylized, shedding their resemblance to the original pictures and taking on lives of their own. This shift paved the way for an even greater leap: the creation of phonetic writing systems. Instead of relying solely on symbols that represented whole words or ideas, humans began breaking down language into its smallest units, sounds. By assigning unique marks to individual consonants and vowels, they developed alphabets capable of expressing any word, no matter how abstract or nuanced. One of the earliest examples of this breakthrough comes from ancient Egypt, where hieroglyphs blended pictorial elements with phonetic signs. Some symbols stood for entire words, while others represented single sounds, laying the groundwork for modern alphabets. Similarly, the Phoenicians, a seafaring civilization renowned for trade, created one of history's first true alphabets around 1050 BCE. Their system consisted of 2 letters, each corresponding to a consonant sound, which could be combined to form countless words. The genius of the Phoenician alphabet lay in its simplicity. Unlike earlier systems, which required hundreds or even thousands of characters, the Phoenician script reduced writing to a manageable set of symbols. This innovation made literacy accessible to more people and spread rapidly across the Mediterranean world. The Greeks adopted and adapted the Phoenician system, adding vowels to create the foundation of the classical Greek alphabet, a cornerstone of Western civilization. From Greece, the alphabet traveled to Rome, where it evolved into the Latin alphabet we still use today. Over centuries, this versatile system absorbed influences from diverse cultures, expanding to accommodate new sounds and languages, yet traces of its origins remain. Consider the letter A, which likely began as an image of an ox head with its horns pointing upward. Over millennia, it was simplified and rotated until it became the familiar shape we know now. What's remarkable about this progression is how deeply it reflects human ingenuity. Writing didn't just evolve to record facts. It became a vehicle for creativity, storytelling, and cultural identity. Through alphabets, we could preserve history, codify laws, compose poetry, and share wisdom across vast distances and lifetimes. So, as you reflect on the evolution of alphabets, imagine those first moments when early humans realized they could transform images into enduring symbols. Each stroke of their tools carried within it the power to transcend time and space, to speak to future generations long after they were gone. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy knowing that every letter, every word, and every sentence carries echoes of this extraordinary evolution. In the quiet lines of text, the curves of letters, and the spaces between words, you honor the legacy of those who first dared to give permanence to thought, a testament to humanity's endless capacity to create, connect, and endure. As we delve deeper into the origins of written language, let us now turn our attention to one of humanity's most transformative innovations, the alphabet as we know it today. At the heart of this evolution lies the remarkable contribution of the ancient Phoenicians, a seafaring civilization whose ingenuity reshaped how humans communicate. Their creation of a phonetic writing system laid the foundation for the alphabets used across much of the world today. To understand the significance of the Phoenician contribution, imagine a time before alphabets existed. Early writing systems, such as Egyptian hieroglyphs or Sumerian cuneiform, relied on hundreds, even thousands of symbols. Each symbol represented an entire word, idea, or syllable, making literacy a complex and exclusive skill reserved for scribes who spent years mastering these intricate scripts. But then came the Phoenicians, traders and navigators whose ships sailed far and wide across the Mediterranean Sea. For them, communication was essential, not just among their own people, but also with the diverse cultures they encountered along their routes. They needed a simpler, more efficient way to record transactions, share information, and bridge linguistic divides. And so, around 1050 BCE, they revolutionized writing by introducing the world's first true alphabet. The genius of the Phoenician alphabet lay in its simplicity. Instead of using symbols to represent whole words or ideas, the Phoenicians broke language down into its smallest units, sounds. Specifically, they focused on consonants, creating a set of 22 letters that could be combined to form any word in their language. Each letter corresponded to a single sound, allowing writers to express endless combinations with minimal effort. This shift from pictorial or syllabic systems to a purely phonetic approach marked a monumental leap forward. No longer did scribes need to memorize vast repertoires of characters. Instead, anyone willing to learn the basic set of two symbols could read and write. Literacy became accessible not just to elites, but to ordinary people, transforming societies in profound ways. The Phoenician alphabet wasn't perfect. It lacked vowels, leaving readers to infer missing sounds based on context. Yet, its impact was undeniable. As Phoenician merchants traveled, they carried their writing system with them, spreading it to neighboring civilizations. The Greeks adopted and adapted the Phoenician script, adding vowels to create the classical Greek alphabet, a cornerstone of Western civilization. From there, the Roman Empire inherited and refined the system, giving rise to the Latin alphabet still used globally today. What makes the Phoenician contribution so extraordinary is how it transcended cultural boundaries. Their alphabet didn't impose a specific language. Rather, it provided a flexible framework that other cultures could adapt to suit their needs. Hebrew, Arabic, Cyrillic, and countless other writing systems trace their roots back to this original innovation. Even modern digital communication owes a debt to the Phoenicians' decision to simplify and standardize the representation of sound. Imagine the ripple effect of this invention. With a few simple marks, the Phoenicians unlocked humanity's ability to capture spoken language permanently. Stories, laws, poetry, and knowledge could now travel beyond the limits of memory and geography. Ideas once confined to oral traditions could be preserved, shared, and built upon by future generations. So, as you reflect on the Phoenician contribution to writing, picture those early traders etching symbols onto clay tablets or papyrus scrolls. Each stroke of their stylus carried within it the power to connect minds, preserve history, and shape the course of human progress. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy knowing that every letter you see, every word you read, carries echoes of this extraordinary legacy. In the quiet curves of letters, the fluidity of ink, and the silent spaces between words, we honor the pioneers who dared to give permanence to sound, a testament to humanity's endless capacity to create, communicate, and endure. As we continue our journey through the evolution of written language, let us now explore two distinct approaches to writing that emerged in different corners of the ancient world: hieroglyphic systems and phonetic scripts. These contrasting styles reflect not only the ingenuity of their creators, but also the unique needs and cultures of the civilizations that developed them. Hieroglyphs, those intricate and often beautiful symbols etched into stone or papyrus, are perhaps best associated with ancient Egypt. The word hieroglyph itself means sacred carvings, a fitting name given their use in temples, tombs, and monuments. Hieroglyphs were more than just a writing system. They were an art form, imbued with spiritual significance and tied deeply to Egyptian culture. At first glance, hieroglyphs appear pictorial, images of animals, people, objects, and abstract shapes arranged in rows or columns. Some symbols represented entire words or ideas, known as logograms. For example, a drawing of an eye might stand for the concept of vision or sight. Other symbols functioned as determinatives, providing context or clarifying meaning. Yet, what makes Egyptian hieroglyphs particularly remarkable is their inclusion of phonetic elements. Certain glyphs stood for specific sounds, allowing scribes to spell out names, foreign words, or complex terms using a combination of pictures and sound-based signs. In contrast, phonetic writing systems took a radically different approach. Rather than relying on images to convey meaning directly, these systems broke language down into its smallest units, sounds, and assigned unique marks to each one. One of the earliest examples of this innovation comes from the Phoenicians, whose alphabet focused solely on consonants. Each letter corresponded to a single sound, enabling writers to express any word in their language with just 22 symbols. This simplicity revolutionized communication, making literacy accessible to broader populations and spreading rapidly across trade routes. The distinction between hieroglyphs and phonetic scripts lies not only in their structure but also in their purpose. Hieroglyphs were often ceremonial, reserved for monumental inscriptions, religious texts, and royal decrees. Their visual complexity added weight and authority to the messages they conveyed. Phonetic systems, on the other hand, prioritized practicality. They allowed merchants, administrators, and ordinary citizens to record transactions, share information, and document daily life without requiring years of specialized training. Despite their differences, both hieroglyphs and phonetic scripts share a common goal: to preserve and transmit knowledge. Whether carved into stone or inked onto parchment, these writing systems transformed fleeting thoughts into enduring records, bridging the gap between past and present. And though hieroglyphs eventually fell out of use, replaced by simpler scripts like Demotic and later Greek, their influence endures in the decorative fonts and symbolic imagery we see today. It's worth noting that many civilizations adopted and adapted writing styles from others, blending elements to suit their own needs. For instance, the Greeks borrowed heavily from the Phoenician alphabet, adding vowels to create the classical Greek script, a cornerstone of Western civilization. Similarly, Chinese characters evolved independently, combining logographic and phonetic components to represent the nuances of the Chinese language. These diverse paths highlight the creativity and adaptability of human communication. What's truly remarkable about these writing systems is how they reflect the values and priorities of their respective cultures. Hieroglyphs celebrate the divine and the eternal, capturing the grandeur of ancient Egypt. Phonetic scripts emphasize efficiency and accessibility, mirroring the dynamic, interconnected worlds of the Phoenicians, Greeks, and Romans. Together, they remind us that writing is not merely a tool, it's a mirror of society, shaped by and shaping the way we think, speak, and interact. So, as you reflect on the differences between hieroglyphs and phonetic scripts, imagine the hands that first etched these symbols into stone or pressed them into clay. Each stroke carried within it the power to transcend time and space, to connect minds, preserve history, and shape the course of human progress. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that every letter, every word, and every sentence carries echoes of this extraordinary legacy. In the quiet curves of letters, the fluidity of ink, and the silent spaces between words, we honor the pioneers who dared to give permanence to thought, a testament to humanity's endless capacity to create, communicate, and endure. As we continue our journey through the evolution of human language, let us now explore one of the most dynamic forces that shaped how people communicate: trade. Commerce has long been a powerful driver of cultural exchange, and with it came the spread of languages, words, and ideas. From ancient marketplaces to bustling ports, the movement of goods also carried the movement of speech, connecting distant worlds and weaving together the fabric of global communication. Imagine standing in an ancient marketplace thousands of years ago. Merchants from far-off lands gathered to barter their wares, spices from the east, textiles from the south, metals from the north. Each trader brings not only their goods, but also their language as they haggle, negotiate, and share stories. New words begin to flow between them. For time to these borrowed terms take root, enriching local dialects and creating shared vocabularies that bridge cultures. This process wasn't just about convenience. It was essential for survival and success. Traders needed ways to communicate basic information, prices, quantities, directions, and agreements. Simple phrases became lingua francas, common languages used by people who spoke different native tongues. For example, in the Mediterranean world, Greek served as a dominant trade language during the Hellenistic period, while Latin later played a similar role across the Roman Empire. But trade didn't just spread existing languages. It created entirely new ones. Pidgin languages emerged as simplified forms of communication, blending elements from multiple tongues. These pidgins allowed traders, sailors, and settlers to interact despite linguistic barriers. Over generations, some pidgins evolved into Creole languages, gaining complexity and becoming full-fledged means of expression for entire communities. One fascinating example comes from the Indian Ocean trade networks, where Arabic played a central role. As Muslim merchants traveled along these routes, they introduced Arabic words related to commerce, navigation, and religion. Today, many languages in Southeast Asia, Africa, and beyond bear traces of this influence. Words like sugar, coffee, and algebra entered European languages via Arabic, carried along silk and spice roads. The impact of trade on language extends far beyond vocabulary. It also influenced grammar, pronunciation, and even writing systems. Consider the adoption of the Phoenician alphabet by the Greeks, which we discussed earlier. This innovation spread through trade routes, eventually giving rise to countless alphabets used worldwide today. Similarly, Chinese characters traveled to Japan and Korea, adapting to fit local languages while retaining their original structure. Trade also fostered mutual understanding, not just in terms of economics, but in cultural and intellectual exchange. Ideas about science, philosophy, and governance traveled alongside goods. The Silk Road, for instance, wasn't merely a conduit for silk and spices. It was a highway for Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, and other belief systems, each leaving its mark on the languages and cultures it touched. Of course, the influence of trade on language wasn't always harmonious. Colonization and conquest often accompanied commerce, leading to the imposition of dominant languages at the expense of indigenous ones. Yet, even in these cases, resilience persisted. Native languages absorbed foreign elements, creating hybrid forms that reflected both resistance and adaptation. This interplay between power and creativity continues to shape our linguistic landscape today. So, as you reflect on the role of trade in spreading language, imagine those first moments when traders exchanged not only goods, but also greetings, names, and stories. Each transaction carried within it the seeds of connection, planting words that would grow into bridges between peoples. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that every phrase you hear, every word you speak, carries echoes of this extraordinary legacy, a testament to humanity's endless capacity to create, communicate, and endure. In the quiet hum of markets, the rhythm of negotiation, and the flow of shared ideas, we honor the pioneers who dared to cross borders and build connections, a reminder that language is not just a tool, but a living testament to our shared history. As we journey through the evolution of human language, let us now pause to reflect on one of history's most transformative inventions, the printing press. Invented by Johannes Gutenberg around 1440, this revolutionary device didn't just make books more accessible. It fundamentally reshaped how languages were written, spoken, and preserved. Through the power of print, regional dialects gave way to standardized forms, and knowledge spread farther than ever before. Before the printing press, books were painstakingly copied by hand, often by monks in monasteries. These manuscripts were rare, expensive, and prone to errors introduced during transcription. As a result, texts varied widely from region to region, reflecting local dialects, spellings, and interpretations. Language was fluid, shaped by oral traditions and regional differences that made communication across distances challenging. But with the advent of movable type, everything changed. Suddenly, thousands of identical copies of a single text could be produced quickly and relatively inexpensively. The first major project Gutenberg undertook was the Bible, a monumental work that demonstrated the potential of his invention. But beyond religious texts, the printing press enabled the mass production of literature, scientific treatises, legal documents, and more. And as these printed materials circulated, they began to influence the very fabric of language itself. One of the most profound impacts of the printing press was the standardization of languages. Before, print spelling and grammar were inconsistent, varying not only between regions, but even within the same town. Printers, seeking efficiency and uniformity, chose specific spellings and grammatical conventions to use in their publications. Over time, these choices became standardized, creating the foundation for modern written languages. For example, English underwent significant changes after William Caxton introduced the printing press to England in 1476. His decisions about spelling and vocabulary helped shape the language into what we recognize today. The printing press also played a crucial role in elevating certain dialects over others. In many cases, the dialects spoken in the capital city or used by political elites became the standard form of the language. For instance, early modern English, based largely on the London dialect, gained prominence thanks to widespread printing. Similarly, High German emerged as the literary standard in Germany, displacing numerous regional variants. By privileging particular dialects, the printing press contributed to the decline of linguistic diversity in favor of broader accessibility. Books did more than standardize language. They democratized it. Literacy rates soared as books became cheaper and more widely available. People who had never held a book suddenly found themselves able to read stories, learn new skills, and engage with ideas once reserved for the educated elite. This newfound access to knowledge sparked intellectual revolutions, from the Renaissance to the Enlightenment, transforming societies and fueling progress. Yet, the impact of the printing press wasn't without controversy. Standardization meant that some voices were silenced while others were amplified. Minority languages and dialects struggled to survive as dominant tongues took center stage. Even so, the exchange of ideas facilitated by print fostered cultural exchange and innovation. Words borrowed from other languages entered common usage, enriching vocabularies and reflecting global connections born of trade, exploration, and colonization. Perhaps the most enduring legacy of the printing press is its ability to preserve language. Printed books act as time capsules, capturing the state of a language at a specific moment in history. Today, scholars can study centuries-old texts to trace the evolution of words, phrases, and grammar. Without the printing press, much of this linguistic heritage might have been lost to the passage of time. So, as you reflect on the printing press and its impact, imagine the first pages rolling off Gutenberg's press. The smell of ink, the crispness of paper, the promise of endless possibilities. Each book carried within it the power to connect minds, preserve culture, and shape the course of human progress. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy knowing that every word you read carries echoes of this extraordinary legacy. In the quiet turning of pages, the weight of ink on paper, and the silent stories etched into history, we honor the pioneers who dared to give permanence to thought, a testament to humanity's endless capacity to create, communicate, and endure. As we journey through the evolution of human language, let us now turn our attention to one of history's most transformative periods, the Renaissance. Spanning roughly from the 5th to the 17th century, this era was marked not only by artistic and scientific innovation, but also by a profound revival of interest in ancient languages. During this time, scholars looked back to the wisdom of Greece and Rome, breathing new life into long dormant tongues and reshaping the linguistic landscape of Europe. The Renaissance, a word itself meaning rebirth, was fueled by a rediscovery of classical texts that had been preserved in monasteries, libraries, and distant lands. These works, written in Latin and Greek, held the keys to understanding philosophy, science, law, and literature as envisioned by thinkers like Cicero, Plato, and Aristotle. But accessing these treasures required more than just curiosity. It demanded knowledge of the languages in which they were written. Latin, already a cornerstone of medieval education, saw renewed prominence during the Renaissance. It served as the lingua franca of scholars, clergy, and intellectuals across Europe, enabling communication across linguistic divides. However, what set this period apart was the growing fascination with ancient Greek. For centuries, Greek had been largely inaccessible in Western Europe due to limited contact with Byzantine scholars and the Islamic world, where many Greek texts were preserved. That changed when refugees fleeing the fall of Constantinople in 1453 brought precious manuscripts and their expertise to Italy. This influx of knowledge sparked a movement known as humanism, which emphasized the study of classical antiquity as a means of improving contemporary society. Humanists believed that mastering ancient languages could unlock timeless truths about human nature, ethics, and governance. Figures like Petrarch, often called the father of humanism, championed the study of original texts, ad fontes, urging scholars to go directly to the source rather than relying on translations or commentaries. One of the most influential figures in this revival was Desiderius Erasmus, a Dutch scholar whose work exemplified the spirit of the Renaissance. Erasmus produced critical editions of biblical texts in both Latin and Greek, striving for accuracy and authenticity. His efforts extended beyond theology. He also wrote guides for learning Greek and compiled collections of proverbs drawn from classical authors. Through such endeavors, Erasmus helped make ancient languages accessible to a wider audience, inspiring generations of students to embrace the richness of Greece and Rome. But the Renaissance wasn't just about reviving dead languages. It was also about reimagining them. As scholars delved into ancient texts, they began to see their own vernacular languages in a new light. Writers like Dante Alighieri, Geoffrey Chaucer, and later William Shakespeare sought to elevate their native tongues, Italian, English, and others, to the level of Latin and Greek. They borrowed vocabulary, grammatical structures, and literary techniques from the classics, enriching their languages and expanding their expressive power. The impact of this linguistic revival rippled far beyond academia. The printing press, which we discussed earlier, played a crucial role in disseminating newly translated and annotated works. For the first time, ordinary people could access books in their own languages, broadening participation in intellectual and cultural life. At the same time, the standardization of spelling, grammar, and syntax, driven partly by the influence of classical models, laid the groundwork for modern European languages. Yet, the Renaissance wasn't without its challenges. Some critics argued that focusing too heavily on ancient languages risked neglecting the needs of the present. Others worried that translating sacred texts into vernacular languages might undermine religious authority. Despite these debates, the legacy of the Renaissance endures. Today, echoes of this linguistic rebirth can be heard in everything from legal terminology rooted in Latin to the continued study of Greek philosophy. So, as you reflect on the Renaissance and its role in reviving ancient tongues, imagine the scholars poring over dusty manuscripts, their pens scratching against parchment as they brought forgotten voices back to life. Each word they uncovered carried within it the wisdom of centuries, bridging past and present in ways that continue to shape our world. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that every phrase in Latin, every echo of Greek philosophy, carries whispers of this extraordinary chapter in human history. In the quiet turning of pages, the weight of ink on paper, and the timeless resonance of ancient words, we honor the pioneers who dared to look backward so that we might move forward, a testament to humanity's endless capacity to learn, adapt, and endure. As we continue our exploration of human language evolution, let us now turn our attention to one of history's most far-reaching forces: colonialism. The expansion of European powers across the globe during the Age of Exploration not only reshaped borders and economies, but also left an indelible mark on the world's linguistic landscape. Through conquest, trade, and cultural imposition, European languages spread far beyond their original homelands, influencing and often overshadowing indigenous tongues. Beginning in the late 15th century, European nations such as Spain, Portugal, Britain, France, and the Netherlands embarked on voyages of exploration and colonization. These expeditions brought them into contact with diverse peoples and cultures, each with its own rich tapestry of languages. At first, communication between colonizers and indigenous populations relied on rudimentary pidgins, simplified forms of speech blending elements from multiple languages. Over time, however, European powers sought to establish dominance, imposing their languages as tools of administration, education, and religion. The impact of this linguistic imposition varied widely depending on the region and the policies of the colonizing power. In the Americas, for instance, Spanish and Portuguese became dominant forces, supplanting countless indigenous languages. Nahuatl, Quechua, and Guarani survived in some areas, often blending with European vocabulary to create new hybrid dialects. Meanwhile, English took root in North America, Australia, and parts of Africa, while French spread across swaths of West Africa and Southeast Asia. One of the most profound consequences of colonialism was the marginalization of native languages. Indigenous tongues were frequently dismissed as primitive or uncivilized, leading to policies that actively discouraged or even banned their use. Missionaries played a particularly influential role, promoting European languages as vehicles for Christianity and civilization. Schools established under colonial rule prioritized instruction in the colonizers' language, often punishing children for speaking their mother tongues. Yet, despite these pressures, many indigenous languages endured, adapting and evolving in response to the changing world around them. Some borrowed words from European languages to describe new concepts or technologies, integrating them seamlessly into their existing structures. Others developed resistance movements, reclaiming their linguistic heritage as a form of cultural identity and pride. Today, efforts to revitalize endangered languages are gaining momentum, driven by communities determined to preserve their ancestral voices. At the same time, the spread of European languages created new opportunities for cross-cultural exchange. Creole languages emerged as vibrant blends of African, Asian, indigenous, and European influences, reflecting the dynamic interactions between colonizers and the colonized. Haitian Creole, Jamaican Patois, and Tok Pisin in Papua New Guinea are just a few examples of how language can adapt and thrive in the face of adversity. Colonialism also laid the groundwork for the global dominance of certain languages in the modern era. English, in particular, has become a lingua franca of international business, science, and diplomacy, a legacy of British imperialism and later American influence. French, Spanish, and Portuguese remain widely spoken across continents due to their colonial histories. While these languages facilitate global communication, they also perpetuate inequalities, privileging those who speak them fluently over speakers of less dominant tongues. It's important to acknowledge the dual nature of colonialism's linguistic legacy. On one hand, it facilitated unprecedented connections between distant cultures, enabling ideas, innovations, and stories to travel farther than ever before. On the other hand, it disrupted millennia-old traditions, erasing countless languages and silencing voices that once thrived. The challenge we face today is finding ways to honor both the diversity of human expression and the shared heritage that binds us together. So, as you reflect on the spread of European languages through colonialism, imagine the countless encounters that shaped this chapter of history. Moments of conflict, cooperation, adaptation, and resilience. Each word exchanged carried within it the weight of power dynamics, yet also the potential for mutual understanding. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that every language, whether thriving or endangered, carries echoes of humanity's enduring quest to connect, share, and survive. In the quieted cadence of borrowed words, the rhythm of blended phrases, and the silent strength of preserved traditions, we honor the complexity of our shared linguistic journey, a testament to humanity's ability to adapt, resist, and rebuild. As we continue our exploration of human language evolution, let us now turn our attention to one of the most dynamic processes in linguistic history, the emergence of Pidgins and Creoles. These unique forms of communication arise when cultures collide, blending elements from multiple languages to create something entirely new. Through Pidgins and Creoles, we see how language adapts, evolves, and reflects the resilience of human creativity. To understand this phenomenon, imagine a bustling port city. Centuries ago, merchants, sailors, and settlers from distant lands converge, each speaking their own native tongue. Communication is essential, but without a shared language, misunderstandings abound. In these moments of necessity, pidgin languages are born. Pidgins are simplified systems of communication, often pieced together from bits of vocabulary and grammar borrowed from different languages. A pidgin isn't a full-fledged language. It lacks complex grammar and vocabulary, but it serves its purpose. For example, traders might use a pidgin to negotiate prices or exchange goods. Words from dominant colonial languages like English, French, or Portuguese mix with local dialects, creating a functional yet rudimentary way to interact. The result is a patchwork of sounds and structures that bridges cultural divides. But what happens when a pidgin becomes more than just a tool for trade? When children grow up hearing and using a pidgin as part of their daily lives, something extraordinary occurs. Over generations, the pidgin transforms into a creole, a fully developed language with its own consistent grammar, syntax, and vocabulary. Creoles carry within them echoes of their origins, but stand as independent entities, rich with meaning and nuance. One remarkable example comes from the Caribbean. where African slaves brought to work on plantations combined fragments of European colonial languages with their indigenous tongues. Haitian Creole, for instance, blends French vocabulary with West African grammatical structures, resulting in a vibrant and expressive language spoken by millions today. Similarly, Tok Pisin in Papua New Guinea evolved from an English-based pidgin into a national lingua franca, reflecting the diverse cultural heritage of its speakers. The beauty of Creoles lies in their adaptability. They aren't static relics of the past. They're living languages, constantly evolving to meet the needs of their communities. Creoles remind us that language isn't just about words. It's about identity, belonging, and survival. Through them, marginalized peoples have reclaimed agency, turning fragmented means of communication into powerful tools for self-expression. Pidgins and Creoles also challenge traditional notions of linguistic purity. They demonstrate that language doesn't need rigid rules to thrive. It thrives precisely because it bends, borrows, and reinvents itself. Consider Nigerian Pidgin English, which incorporates elements of Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, and other local languages alongside English. It's a testament to the ingenuity of those who navigate multiple worlds, crafting a voice that honors both their roots and their realities. Yet, the story of Pidgins and Creoles isn't without tension. Historically, they've been dismissed as broken or inferior versions of established languages, a reflection of broader societal attitudes toward colonization, migration, and inequality. But recent scholarship celebrates these languages for what they truly are: innovative responses to human connection. They highlight the universality of our desire to be understood, even in the face of adversity. So, as you reflect on the merging and evolution of languages through Pidgins and Creoles, imagine the countless interactions that spark their creation, moments of negotiation, adaptation, and collaboration. Each word carries within it the stories of people who refuse to let barriers silence them. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that every phrase in a Pidgin or Creole carries whispers of humanity's enduring quest to connect, share, and survive. In the quiet cadence of blended words, the rhythm of hybrid phrases, and the silent strength of reclaimed identities, we honor the resilience of those who dared to forge new paths, a testament to humanity's ability to adapt, resist, and rebuild. As we continue our journey through the evolution of human language, let us now turn our attention to a transformative era that reshaped not only industry, but also the way we speak: the Industrial Revolution. Spanning the late 18th to the 9th century, this period of rapid technological advancement brought with it an explosion of new words and phrases. As humanity grappled with the challenges and opportunities of a rapidly changing world. The Industrial Revolution was a time of invention and innovation. Steam engines, spinning jennies, and power looms transformed how goods were produced, while railroads and telegraphs connected distant places like never before. But alongside these machines came something equally revolutionary: a wave of linguistic creativity. As people encountered new technologies, materials, and ways of living, they needed new words to describe them. Consider the word factory, which entered common usage during this time. Before the Industrial Revolution, most goods were made by hand in small workshops or homes. The rise of large-scale manufacturing facilities demanded a term to capture this shift, a place where workers gathered to produce goods using machines. Similarly, words like locomotive, telegraph, and cotton gin emerged to name inventions that changed daily life forever. But it wasn't just technical terms that entered the lexicon. Entire fields of work gave rise to new vocabulary. For instance, the growth of urban centers led to words like commuter, someone who travels regularly to work, and slum, describing overcrowded, impoverished neighborhoods. Even social changes inspired linguistic shifts. Terms like middle class reflected the rise of a new economic stratum born out of industrial prosperity. Language didn't just expand, it adapted. Existing words took on new meanings to keep pace with the times. Take the word engine. Originally referring to any mechanical device, it became closely associated with steam-powered machinery. Or consider textile, which once broadly meant fabric, but grew to encompass the burgeoning industry surrounding its mass production. These semantic shifts allowed people to navigate their evolving reality with precision and clarity. The influence of technology extended beyond individual words. It shaped grammar, idioms, and even metaphors. Phrases like running out of steam or firing on all cylinders drew inspiration from the machinery of the day, embedding technological concepts into everyday speech. Such expressions highlighted humanity's deepening relationship with the tools and systems that defined modern life. Yet, the impact of the Industrial Revolution on language wasn't confined to English alone. Across Europe and beyond, languages absorbed and adapted to the influx of new ideas. French speakers coined terms like chemin de fer, railway, while German introduced Dampf machine, steam engine. In many cases, loan words traveled across borders, reflecting the interconnectedness fostered by trade and technology. Words like factory and machine found their way into multiple languages, underscoring the global reach of industrial innovation. This linguistic transformation wasn't without tension. Some resisted the adoption of technical jargon, viewing it as cold and impersonal compared to the richness of traditional speech. Others worried about the loss of regional dialects as standardized forms of language gained prominence. Yet, despite these concerns, the Industrial Revolution demonstrated the resilience of language. It stretched, evolved, and embraced change, proving itself capable of meeting the demands of a dynamic world. So, as you reflect on the Industrial Revolution and its impact on language, imagine the countless conversations that unfolded in factories, train stations, and town squares. Each new word carried within it the promise of progress, the weight of adaptation, and the spirit of human ingenuity. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that every phrase you use today carries echoes of this extraordinary chapter in history. In the quiet rhythm of machinery, the hum of innovation, and the enduring power of words, We honor the pioneers who dared to reshape not only the physical world, but also the way we express it. A testament to humanity's endless capacity to create, adapt, and endure. As we continue our exploration of human language evolution, let us now turn our attention to one of its most dynamic and playful aspects: slang and informal language. These colorful expressions are the lifeblood of everyday speech, constantly shifting and adapting to reflect the temps, cultures, and communities that create them. Through slang, we see how language isn't just a tool for communication. It's a living, breathing entity that evolves alongside us. Slang is the language of immediacy, born out of the need to express ideas quickly, creatively, and often humorously. It thrives in informal settings, among friends, in music, on social media, where people feel free to experiment with words. What starts as a quirky phrase or rhythmic joke can spread like wildfire, becoming part of the broader cultural lexicon before fading away as new terms take their place. Think about the slang you use today. Words like lit, vibe, or ghost might feel modern, but they follow a pattern as old as language itself. Every generation creates its own vocabulary to describe the world in ways that feel fresh and relevant. In the 1920s, flappers used terms like bee's knees and cat's pajamas. In the 1970s, surfers popularized phrases like hang loose and gnarly. And in the 1990s, hip-hop culture introduced us to bling and yo. Each era leaves its mark, shaping how we talk and think. But why does slang change so rapidly? One reason is identity. Slang allows groups to define themselves, creating a sense of belonging among insiders while excluding outsiders who may not understand the lingo. Teenagers, musicians, athletes, and online communities all develop their own jargon to signal membership and shared values. For example, gamers might say GG, good game, after a match, while fans of a particular subculture might adopt unique terms that resonate with their experiences. Slang also reflects societal shifts. New technologies, trends, and global events inspire fresh vocabulary. The rise of the internet gave us terms like selfie, meme, and hashtag. Social movements have introduced phrases like cancel culture and allyship. Even pandemics leave their mark. During COVID-19, words like quarantine, Zoom fatigue, and WFH, work from home, entered mainstream usage almost overnight. Yet, slang isn't without controversy. Some view it as lazy or improper, arguing that it undermines proper language. But this perspective overlooks the creativity and adaptability that slang embodies. Far from being chaotic, slang follows rules. It's just that those rules are shaped by the needs and desires of the people using it. Consider how abbreviations like LOL, laugh out loud, or OMG, oh my God, convey complex emotions in just a few letters. They're efficient, expressive, and deeply rooted in context. What makes slang particularly fascinating is its fleeting nature. Unlike formal language, which strives for permanence, slang thrives on impermanence. a word can rise to popularity, dominate conversations for years, and then vanish as quickly as it appeared. Remember groovy or rad? Once staples of youthful expression, they now evoke nostalgia rather than contemporary relevance. Yet, even when slang fades, it leaves traces behind in literature, film, and the memories of those who lived through its heyday. Slang also highlights the interplay between language and power. Historically, dominant groups have often dismissed slang as inferior, associating it with marginalized communities or rebellious youth. But over time, many slang terms cross over into mainstream language, losing their edge and becoming accepted, even celebrated as part of the cultural fabric. Take the word cool, originally rooted in African American jazz culture. Today, it's universally understood and used across generations and geographies. So, as you reflect on the role of slang in shaping everyday speech, imagine the countless moments when someone first coined a phrase that captured the spirit of their time. Each word carried within it the energy of innovation, the joy of connection, and the pulse of change. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that every slang term you've ever used carries echoes of humanity's endless capacity to adapt, resist, and rebuild. In the quiet rhythm of casual conversations, the playful twists of words, and the silent bonds forged through shared language, we honor the creativity of those who dare to reinvent expression, a testament to humanity's ability to connect, share, and survive. As we continue our journey through the evolution of human language, let us now explore one of its most dynamic and enriching processes: how languages borrow words from one another. Language is not static. It flows, adapts, and grows, much like a river that picks up new currents as it travels. Through borrowing, languages reflect the interconnectedness of humanity, blending cultures, ideas, and histories into a shared tapestry of expression. To understand this phenomenon, imagine two neighboring villages meeting at a bustling marketplace. One group speaks a language rich in terms for farming, while the other excels in crafting tools. As they trade goods, they also exchange words, terms for plows, hammers, or techniques that eventually find their way into each other's vocabularies. These borrowed words become bridges, connecting communities through shared experiences and innovations. Borrowing isn't limited to practical needs. It often reflects cultural exchanges, too. Consider the influence of French on English. After the Norman conquest in 1066, words like cuisine, chivalry, and government entered English, reflecting the dominance of French culture in areas such as food, manners, and administration. Similarly, during the Renaissance, Latin and Greek terms flooded European languages, shaping fields like science, philosophy, and art. In today's globalized world, borrowing happens faster than ever before. Thanks to trade, travel, technology, and media, words cross borders with ease. For instance, Japanese has adopted English words like kohi, coffee, and pasokon, personal computer, while English has embraced terms like sushi, yoga, and tsunami. Even slang spreads internationally. Phrases like hola or bon appetit are now part of everyday speech for many non-native speakers. What makes linguistic borrowing so remarkable is its adaptability. When a word moves from one language to another, it often undergoes subtle changes. Pronunciation shifts, spellings adapt, and meanings may evolve to fit the host language's context. For example, the German word kindergarten, meaning children's garden, retains its original meaning in English, but feels uniquely suited to describe early childhood education programs. Borrowing also reveals power dynamics. Historically dominant cultures have influenced others through conquest, colonization, or economic strength. Spanish spread widely across the Americas, leaving behind countless loanwords in indigenous languages. Meanwhile, English became a global lingua franca due to British imperialism and later American cultural influence. Yet, borrowing is rarely one-sided. Even dominant languages absorb elements from those they encounter, creating a mutual enrichment. At times, borrowing can lead to resistance. Some worry that adopting foreign words dilutes a language's purity or erases local traditions. Others celebrate it as proof of vitality, a sign that a language remains open to new influences. For instance, modern Hebrew revitalized itself by incorporating international vocabulary alongside ancient roots, proving that even revived languages can thrive through adaptation. Language borrowing reminds us that no tongue exists in isolation. Every word carries traces of its journey, from the Silk Road traders who introduced spices in their names to Europe, to the digital age where emojis and internet slang transcend linguistic barriers. These borrowed words tell stories of connection, survival, and creativity. They remind us that language is alive, constantly reinventing itself to meet the needs of its speakers. So, as you reflect on the mixing of global vocabularies, imagine the countless moments when someone first uttered a borrowed word, a phrase that bridged divides, sparked curiosity, or simply made life easier. Each word carries within it the echoes of distant lands, forgotten conversations, and timeless human ingenuity. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that every word you hear carries whispers of this extraordinary legacy. In the quiet rhythm of blended phrases, the harmony of shared expressions, and the enduring power of connection, we honor the beauty of language, a testament to humanity's endless capacity to create, adapt, and endure. As we continue our journey through the evolution of human language, let us now explore how science has shaped the way we speak. From the stars above to the tiniest particles beneath our feet, scientific discoveries have introduced new words into our vocabulary. Words that capture the wonder and complexity of the universe. Through science, humanity has not only expanded its understanding of the world, but also enriched the very language we use to describe it. Think about the last time you heard terms like quantum, genome, or black hole. These aren't just abstract concepts. They're windows into realms of knowledge that were once beyond our grasp. Each word represents centuries of inquiry, experimentation, and breakthroughs. They remind us that language evolves alongside our quest to make sense of the unknown. Science often demands precision, and with precision comes the need for new terminology. For example, When Isaac Newton formulated his laws of motion, he didn't just change physics. He gave us words like gravity and inertia, which became part of everyday speech. Similarly, Albert Einstein's theory of relativity introduced phrases like space-time, blending two ideas into one powerful concept that redefined how we think about the cosmos. But it's not just monumental theories that shape language. Everyday discoveries also leave their mark. Consider the field of biology. The discovery of DNA led to terms like double helix and genetic code, while advancements in medicine brought us antibiotics and vaccines. Even modern technologies like smartphones and Wi-Fi have added words to our lexicon, reflecting how deeply intertwined science is with daily life. What makes scientific language particularly fascinating is its ability to bridge discipline. A single term can ripple across fields, carrying meaning far beyond its original context. Take the word atom, which began as a philosophical idea in ancient Greece, the smallest indivisible unit of matter. Today, it serves as the foundation for chemistry, physics, and even computer science, where atomic structures inspire quantum computing models. Scientific language also reflects humanity's creativity. When astronomers discovered exoplanets, planets orbiting distant stars, they needed names for these alien worlds. Instead of inventing entirely new terms, they drew inspiration from mythology, naming planets after figures like Kepler and Trappist. In doing so, they connected cutting-edge research to timeless stories, blending the old with the new. Yet, the influence of science on language isn't always straightforward. Sometimes words take on lives of their own, evolving beyond their technical origins. The term electricity, derived from the Greek word for amber, electron, originally described static charge. Now, it encompasses everything from power grids to lightning storms. Similarly, algorithm, once a niche mathematical term, now describes processes ranging from social media feeds to artificial intelligence. This interplay between science and language highlights a fundamental truth. Discovery is never static. As our tools and methods improve, so too does our ability to observe, measure, and name the world around us. But with each new word comes a responsibility to ensure that language remains accessible, inclusive, and reflective of diverse perspectives. After all, science belongs to everyone, and so should the words we use to talk about it. So, as you reflect on the influence of science on language, imagine the countless moments when someone first coined a term to describe the unimaginable, a quark, a quasar, or a quantum leap. Each word carried within it the thrill of discovery, the weight of understanding, and the promise of possibility. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that every phrase you hear carries whispers of humanity's endless pursuit of knowledge. In the quiet rhythm of scientific jargon, the harmony of shared discovery, and the enduring power of curiosity, we honor the pioneers who dared to name the unknown, a testament to humanity's ability to create, adapt, and endure. As we continue our exploration of human language evolution, let us now turn our attention to one of the most pervasive linguistic phenomena of modern times, the rise of English as a global language. From classrooms to corporate boardrooms, from airports to the internet, English has become the lingua franca of the 21st century. But how did this happen? Why does English seem to be everywhere, bridging cultures, continents, and communities? To understand the dominance of English, we must look back at history, a story shaped by conquest, commerce, colonization, and culture. The journey begins in medieval England, where Old English evolved under the influence of Norse invaders and later Norman French. Over centuries, this fusion gave rise to Middle English, with works like Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, and eventually Modern English, enriched by the Renaissance and the printing press. But the real tipping point came during the Age of Exploration and Empire. Beginning in the 16th century, the British Empire expanded its reach across the globe, bringing English to North America, Africa, Asia, Australia, and beyond. Colonization left an indelible mark, embedding English into legal systems, education, trade, and governance in regions far removed from its origins. Though independence movements followed, the legacy of English remained, often serving as a neutral second language in multilingual nations. Fast forward to the 20th century, when another superpower emerged, the United States. Following World War II, American economic, political, and cultural influence skyrocketed. Hollywood films, jazz and rock music, technological innovations, and international diplomacy spread English even further. Brands like Coca-Cola, Microsoft, and Google became household names, carrying the English language into homes worldwide. The digital revolution only accelerated this trend. As the internet took shape in the late 20th century, much of its architecture was built using English. Early websites, programming languages, and communication protocols relied heavily on English terminology. While the web has since diversified, English remains the default language of cyberspace, powering social media platforms, search engines, and online learning tools that connect billions of people every day. Yet, the ubiquity of English isn't merely a result of historical accident or technological dominance. It's also a matter of practicality. With over 1.5 billion speakers, native and non-native alike, English serves as a bridge between nations, enabling individuals who don't share a first language to communicate effectively. Whether it's scientists collaborating on climate change research, tourists navigating foreign cities, or businesses negotiating deals, English provides a common ground. Of course, the rise of English hasn't been without controversy. Critics argue that its dominance marginalizes other languages, erasing cultural diversity and privileging Anglophone perspectives. Indigenous tongues and minority dialects have faced pressure to conform, leading to fears of linguistic extinction. At the same time, many celebrate English as a tool for opportunity, opening doors to education, employment, and global citizenship. What makes English particularly adaptable is its flexibility. It borrows freely from other languages, incorporating words like yoga from Sanskrit, sushi from Japanese, and café from French. Its grammar is relatively simple compared to some languages, making it accessible to learners. And its vocabulary is vast, offering countless ways to express ideas, emotions, and experiences. So, as you reflect on the rise of English as a global language, imagine the countless moments when someone first encountered it. A child learning the alphabet, a traveler ordering food abroad, or a student typing their first email. Each interaction carried within it the potential to connect, inspire, and transform. And if sleep begins to claim you, let it come. Rest easy, knowing that every word spoken in English carries echoes of humanity's shared journey, a testament to our endless capacity to create, adapt, and endure. In the quiet rhythm of borrowed phrases, the harmony of global conversations, and the enduring power of connection, we honor the complexity of our shared linguistic heritage, a reminder that language is not just a means of communication, but a living bridge between hearts and minds.